with a 40-floor tower that, frankly, the game really does not expect you to climb in one dose. We don't expect anyone to climb in one dose. And so we will be seeing multiple entries and just a round-robin format that will allow the players to get lots of practice in trying, dying, and trying again.
Absolutely. And so what they're going to be dying and trying to do here is climb this tower. Azure Dreams is a roguelike game, for those of you who are not familiar. The overall goal here in this race is each player has 1 hour to get as high as they can, and they're allowed to leave the tower by their own choice or by force if the tower decides to reject them. And we measure the score based off of who gets to the highest floor the quickest. So if Skateman were to get to floor 14 at the 22-minute mark, and that's his high score for the run, Maafterchef would have to get at least 1 floor higher than that if Skateman arrived at that floor first. So we see that runners having to go through and pick up their starting kit. You were going to say something, Demi?
Right. I would say that it's worth noting that though we are allowing multiple entries in a way that's a little bit more accurate to how the game is played and expects you to play it compared to a single entry 80% run. Those extra entries only will count for anything if they reach higher than any of the... If they are the highest floor. We're not adding the runs together.
Right, yes. And so we see a skateman here doing something kind of interesting. He is going for a skip. You can manipulate a few things. So he picked up the egg and used that to step over a trigger that would normally happen when you pick up the egg. We'll see here if Maafterchef will do the same.
We didn't see those in previous tournaments, but this tournament is for newer runners. A lot of the more experienced runners we have been putting together resources, and one of those was a stream of here's ways you can skip the tutorial dialogue.
Exactly, and we saw Skateman there do a few strange movements. He made a diagonal movement and then kind of went the long way down and around, and both of those ended up saving a total of 3 sets of text boxes, which represents a big savings. You can see that he's already onto that floor. And you mentioned those resources available to players. One of those resources was also coaches. Some of the more experienced runners offered their time to help give suggestions to some of our either new or, as you said, rising runners. And I thought that was absolutely great. It's great to see what innovations and just fun play we can see from these runners in particular.
Neither of these two have been in previous tournaments, so they're both fairly new to the scene, and so it'll be really fun to see what they've picked up from other runners, what they bring to this themselves. Now, like the last couple of tournaments, though not the original one, this is using seated towers, and these seated towers will be, I'm not entirely sure how to put this, seated across re-entry. That is to say that while as true to the game's roguelike nature, the tower will be different each time, the tower will be different each time in the same ways for both of them.
Right, yeah. The way that I like to think about it is if you imagine just a line of randomly generated towers all in a row, each time they leave the tower, they go to the next one in the series. And because they're the same line of towers for both runners, on the same entry, the tower will look for the same for them. Now, we do see here a little bit of not too dangerous of a situation, but Maafterchef did get hit by a spell and is down to 2 HP. This is getting a little bit perilous here. Even that Palumpa could potentially deal 2 HP worth of damage, and he's taking a moment here to ponder, gather his thoughts. Meanwhile, Skateman on the right, killing trolls, already hit level 3. That first level represents a big increase in max HP, and that is serving him well as he's able to do more damage and take out the flame.
Right. Okay. Maafterchef is really not getting a break and is trying to think about this, because while re-entries would allow him to come back with a stronger monster, it's only 1 level stronger a monster, and he would lose everything he has here. Now, he could use the Wind Crystal and just give it another go entirely, but here he's just going to heal up. Which is, I think, a sensible sorts of decision.
Right. Azure Dreams is all about how you use your items. You get a basic starting kit on your first entry in, and that can serve you fairly well for the first few floors. Oh, wow. That is a cacophony of noises right there.
That is a wonderful collective noun. I love that. Luckily, noises are not too terribly threatening, but I think in this moment of silence, we can see Maafterchef both thinking about what is he going to do, and probably also thinking, can I get a break, please?
Yeah. So the spawn rate is definitely random, and thankfully noises are wind-based enemies. CUNY, being a fire monster, does have the advantage in the elemental triangle over them. So it looks like he was going to maybe do a bit of AI1 manipulation, and instead decides to yeet CUNY far away across the room, and now is left with a choice of, will he potentially leave the room and make CUNY abandoned, or will he stand his ground and fight? He chooses to stand, and I believe that's the right move.
Yeah, I think, unless you noticed Q was at low HP, that eating probably didn't do too terribly much, but it is a little bit better safe than sorry. I mean, losing Q, for one, makes re-entries not worth a whole terribly lot, especially if he dies, because you can only bring in 5 items, and you only keep your monster's levels. You don't keep his level.
I've switched the audio over to Skate, as he is on floor 3 and thus currently ahead.
Blind Trap is not the worst thing that could happen, really. As traps go, it's pretty benevolent, though it is one of those traps that personally hates not just the player character or the monsters, but you, the player, personally.
Yes.
And it looks like he's found a wand that is... a lot of wands on this floor.
Yeah, I saw that he picked up...
equipping them right away, probably in case he finds something better like a Scarlet or a Stream wand, and in case specifically that wand might be cursed, and he might not be able to take it off if he finds something better and will suffer a small status ailment.
Right, and early on, if he's able to still one-shot a Palumpa with or without a wand, it doesn't make too much of a difference. Might make a difference for fighting something a little bit beefier like a Cyclone. But here, coming across this... Yeah.
Having a bit of trouble with, what do they call it? With that
stutter stepping?
The stutter stepping that allows you to see what an item is without picking it up. It's one of those things that can be a little tricky to master at first, because there's a timing of it. If you press it too soon, before you start, if you press the circle button too soon, you'll just run over it and overshoot it entirely. And if you don't press it, then you're just going to pick up the item, which here wouldn't be a bad thing.
So we see they just were in the same room. Maafterchef dodged a frog-shaped bullet there with that trap, and instead the monster came across it on Skateman's side, because of course they're racing in the same tower. And good thing to see neither runner end up falling victim to that. I always like to see that runners climb up high and succeed and fall on their own merits rather than a really bad trap.
Right. And that is, I suppose, one of the particular advantages and why a lot of runners try and start doing any percent with a single power entry, but it's probably a bit easier to do a multi-tower entry any percent and just trying to go back in until you have a monster strong enough and a seed benevolent enough to take you to the top. Any single run can end pretty much at any single time. You never know what will happen because the tower hates that you are alive.
Yes. It is designed for monsters and monsters alone. So we can see both runners here having entered floor 4. They have... I believe they already have a wind crystal, so they don't need to pick up that one. The wind crystal will let them leave the tower and leave it on their own terms. Ooh, that warp trap.
That is one of the scarier things that can happen. Being separated from Kuhn. Now, he can't... Let's see if he secures Kuhn and make sure that Kuhn doesn't just go running off into the middle of nowhere. And he looks like he does know how to do that just by saying, stay where you are, and he knows where Kuhn is. He can find Kuhn. Hopefully before Kuhn dies, or before he dies. Or maybe he'll find the elevator before either of those things happen, because that will bring your monster back to your side.
Yes, and it looks like this isn't too big of a floor. We see that Maafterchef has already found the elevator. Oh, and CUNY is right over there, but he's fighting against a cyclone. Looks like he's got good HP for the time being, and is not taking too much damage, so I think that Skate is going to skate on through this one.
Cyclones are wind monsters, and so Kuhn definitely has the advantage here. But I'm not sure what is doing. I guess he wants the two of them together as quickly as possible. I don't think I've ever actually seen it being a Kuhn come to you from that far away and from inside or outside a room, which is always a dangerous venture. Sure. Monsters have different ability to detect what's going on inside or outside of rooms. And so door frames, for example, become kind of a dangerous place.
They really can be. So we see that Maafterchef has taken the lead here, getting up to floor 5. I'm going to switch the audio back over. And fighting a balloon, we've seen in some previous runs that balloons have not been kind to some players. But here, both of our runners have reached level 4, which does let you take on a balloon without too much difficulty. You're able to regain health back at a pretty decent clip. It's based off of 256 divided by your max HP, so...
And that is the sort of numbers that other people can provide, and I am grateful for it. They're probably about reaching the end of the period where the tower's curve is gentle, let's put it at it, where things amp up slowly instead of quickly, and this is probably about the end of where the tower expects you to make it on your first run. You're starting to see more threatening monsters, including that Manoeva there, and there will soon be more. And part of what makes them threatening is, of course, that they are water monsters and Kuhn is a fire monster.
Right. That Menoweva being such an example, and hopefully the runners decide that they'll have gotten enough in their kit that, getting a regular wand, getting an iron shield should be good enough to let them progress, or they may decide, hey, I haven't gone up too high. It wouldn't be too much of a problem for me to head back, because I want to get a few more levels on Cutie before progressing up for reals.
Right. I think they found a pretty good set of... Oh, does the opposite of what he wanted it to do. He was probably thinking of, I think it's the lava fruit, am I getting that right, as opposed to the lave fruit?
Oh, those two are very similar. The Leo Lamb helps.
Right, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I always get them mixed up, and why they decided to name two fruits almost the exact same thing with just a few letters rearranged, I will never know.
Right, but that means that he's probably going to need to use that pita fruit on Kuhn much earlier than Skateman would.
Yes. But, of course, if he does decide to leave the tower at some point,
problem solved.
Are always... Yeah, problem solved. And you're able to get a free pita fruit from your mother every time. No idea exactly where she's getting them from. I think maybe the farmers up north. They probably grow pita fruit.
Like a reasonable place to get them from. The lore on this game is at times excessively clear and at times entirely opaque. Why is the tower like this? Oh, a wizard did it. That is the real explanation, folks. A wizard did it.
Pretty much. And...
But we do know... from this game also has something of a dating sim aspect and a bit of a town building thing where we can explore the town and meet girls in it and eat at the restaurant and upgrade the temple and so on. And so one of the things that we have about this game is not why the tower works the way it does, besides a wizard did it, but we do know about what sort of seafood is indigenous to the desert town of Mansbia, in case you want to know.
Which is interesting, given that it appears to be a desert town. So,
right, they have there's a sand fish, I think it's what it's called, and you can get in town a sand fish cutlet. In a sandfish sandwich.
Well, I am glad that you know those details and can provide some elucidation into the lore.
Yep. This
All
game
right.
does have some interesting lore, some of it mythologically based, but over on Maafterchef's side, to get back to the current play, which by and going to cut out the macro loop of Azure Dreams, less so than previous tournaments, which completely cut out the macro loop or loop of gameplay. This one will only mostly cut it out. We have now reached the point where the macro loop is probably the first time the players go home, and so anything after this point is him being very impressive. Is any of these players being impressive? Right.
Now, I do think that they do have built up a decent kit. We see that Skate is still rocking his wooden shield and copper sword, while Maafterchef has gone and equipped one of his wands, picked up and equipped that iron shield.
Like he still has a sword. It looks like he has the steel sword that they've both picked up, rather than going to the seal wand, and that's probably not that. And in terms of pure damage at this point, the wand is a better option description, it provides like a multiplier to all mixture magic damage. It's not a bad idea to have a sword if you're not hurting for inventory in case Q eats it. Later on in case he just goes down, and then your wand is utterly useless. But unless it's a same elemental sword, it's probably better to use wand.
Right. And I mean, early on when HP numbers are low, the static boost of a sword's damage can be nice. We see Maafterchef picking up an egg here. He already does have one egg, but that is the Palumpa egg that was picked up on the tutorial floor. It is a weak water monster, and may end up being fused into CUNY, maybe fed as food.
Or thrown at an enemy as a monster bomb. Eggs are a surprisingly versatile thing, but one thing you're probably not going to see is this Palumpa hatched for its own sake. They're a bad enough monster that it is considered a run to run with them.
Yes.
And really, the regular tower, most people, challenging enough.
Yes, and some people do find that that need to shackle themselves to a squidgy ball that doesn't move very far. Yep, that's. I think Palumpa's put the lump in Palumpa. So
that's a good way of putting it.
We see that the distance between the runners has stayed about the same here. Oh, we've got someone excited in chat for puns. Good old Sand Knight. The distance between the runners has stayed about the same. Maafterchef keeping the single floor lead over Skate. So I'm excited that this has stayed pretty close. They've also both used the trap loop on this floor, so hopefully neither one will get caught off guard by a trap.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry, I got distracted about which floor was which for a moment there. But yeah, I think that it's pretty much always a good idea to use loops when you find them. I'm not entirely sure about the relative value of holding on to a trap loop for like a long-term thing.
Yeah, I definitely happen to think that loops are especially well used on floors 6 through 9 because you do not want to have to spend any more time on those floors than is necessary. And I could see if you picked up a trap loop on floor 5 and had already explored part of it, absolutely hold on to that for floor 6, so that way you can not get hit by a prison trap and get closed in on by Manuevas and Blooms.
Right. It looks like Skateman is trying to get a sense, and it's maybe using the trap loop he's already used, of where there might be room. And is specifically heading towards that little light up there in the corner.
Yes, because that is sort of a byproduct. Same thing with the treasure loop, because there tend to be more items than traps. It tends to exceed at that purpose. So Skateman here looks like he's weighing his options, deciding that Bloom is definitely following him. And I don't believe he'll be able to juke the Manueva because I believe it is coming towards him, and there is no branching path in that hallway. So deciding what he wants to do, he is at full health.
I think he might have been able to juke it if it weren't for the Bloom, which will change up his ability to move around safely. Because I think he could have bypassed, because Manuevas do have a slightly smaller range of aggro than other monsters for no obvious reason, as far as I can tell.
I did actually think that there might be a reason for that, which has to do with the fact that Manuevas can transform into objects, and it would prevent them from aggroing until you're in melee with the object.
Oh, he is using that holy scroll to, number one, make that bloom his friend, and also so to give himself an invincible spot from which to deal with the other opponents.
It's a nice way of taking out enemies, but remember, kids, if you have to use a holy scroll to make someone your friend, they're not really your friend.
That is true. Don't give in to monster peer pressure. They think your monster friends are traitors, and they're at least a little bit right, but more important, at least when it comes to Q, they're a little bit right. But you have to listen. Your friends who you hatch are your friends, not theirs. Unless there's a chaos trap or whatever.
Right. So we see that
ability of blooms, which luckily Kyun is immune to.
Yes,
there's only so much brainwashing he can have. Now, Maafterchef isn't going to be able to. Oh, and now there are 2 U-boats following him, but luckily one of them isn't aggroed, so he'll probably be able to lose it. Unfortunately, the one that is following him is going to still be following him for a while.
Yeah, and if you've never seen this game before, let me tell you, U-boats hit like 2 semi-trucks duct taped together, and they are so annoying because they're water monsters and insist on getting the first hit. Now, there is actually one way, it won't be available to these runners, but one way to dispense with the U-boat balls. They're still underground, and that's Hikuni's ability that can actually kill underground U-boats. But in this case, much better to avoid and outrun, as Maafterchef has done here very well.
Right, he has gotten out of that territory, found the white sand, a binding ball, which is an interesting pick. The binding ball is definitely a good ball, and that certainly won't go to waste. But I think my instinct would be to use it on the fireball, if only because you know exactly how many shots that starting fireball gives you.
Definitely, yes. You're not adding onto unknown quantity, and the fireball is a perfectly respectable ball. We see Maafterchef trying to sneak by the bloom here, his solid snake skills failing him, and so he's just going the full force route, taking out that flower.
Doable against blooms. The enemies at this point are getting much stronger, especially now that we are in full water or floors territory. Nori. I'm not even sure that Floor 9 has clowns, right? Clowns are, I think, the only non-water monster on the 9th floor. Or so, for Kyun, it's a pretty dire situation. Oh, we see that binding ball getting used on Skateman and side to deal with a little bit of a bloom problem. But that paralysis does not last long enough to let him go past, which is unfortunate, because it means that the shot was more or less wasted.
Yep, I think that he'll be able to get through this encounter just fine, though, so I'm not...
it's just 1 bloom, and so that's pretty manageable.
Yeah. And to answer your question, clowns do start appearing on floor 8, but they are most prevalent on floor 9. And we begin seeing the Dreamins on floor 9 going to
something else.
Yep.
Dreamins are not themselves very threatening, of course, but because they can put you to sleep, they can cause something much more scary. Oh, and Maafterchef losing Kyun on floor 10, that's going to make this a much dicier situation. And he's clearly taking a minute to think about what he can do, and whether or not this is the time where maybe he gets out, or what he can do to get out of this situation. So he's gonna break out of fireball use,
which
that's pretty good.
To me, suggests that he's looking to continue his climb.
Oh, a lucky pickup on that volcano. I think it's a little weird that he's still holding on to it as opposed to chucking it somewhere where it won't find or follow him.
Yep, although he has dropped it away. What you said about Dreamins to me holds true. Your words about they're not good allies, they're not even good enemies, does ring eternally in my ears. That's always my first thought when I see them. We see that
pretty good way of putting it. I do think that there are basically two types of monsters. Maybe three if you want to think about it. And these are not mutually exclusive types, but I think it's a good organizational systems. You have things that deal enough damage that you will suffer tremendously. Things that take long enough to kill that you will suffer tremendously. And things that are annoying enough that something else will make you suffer tremendously in the meanwhile. And Dreamin's ability to put you to sleep, even though they don't deal a whole lot of damage on their own, not if you have a good shield anyway, puts them firmly in the third category for me. They're not killing monsters, they're monsters that make you more killable.
Yes, there's sort of force multipliers in that sense. And so we see, though, that they do provide some nice experience. Maafterchef here up to level 8 and deciding to continue his climb, picking up a Holy Scroll. It's a nice pickup there. Deciding
very
not
useful
to...
in this situation, especially since he does not have a monster.
Right. Now, we also saw that Maafterchef decided not to either take a few turns to skip them to gain back HP or to try hatching one of his eggs. Most notably, they're the one that happens to be in this round, at least dark gray.
Right, the one we don't know anything about, and it could be nothing, or it could be something really useful. Useful to him. Like, I think based on the floor we found it on, there is a chance of it being maybe a clown, which is a pretty solid monster. Could be a U-boat or a bloom. I forget the exact range for levels, but until we go, we won't know.
Right, yes, that could have been a clown, U-boat, balloon, Dreamin, Volcano, Cyclone, or Menueva.
Right, and of these, some of those are better options than others. Menuevas are, for example, not necessarily bad monsters, but they're probably more interesting for their ability to glitch the game than the game and be used for interesting exploits than necessarily really to have a companion in any perspective. They are, for example, invaluable allies in a bookless or certainly a 100% run, where item duping by using their ability to turn into other monsters becomes tremendously valuable.
Yep. So we see here one of the interesting dynamics of the game, which is that when you don't have Cutie, you're much less likely to want to take on fights, and as a result of this, Maafterchef, having already been in the lead, has rocketed up to floor 14. How sustainable that rapid ascent will be, well, that remains to be seen, but at 34 minutes into the game, being on floor 14, it's not a bad place to be.
Right. That is a pretty good, pretty commanding lead, and Skateman's slow and steady pace might make that tricky to overcome, even if something did happen to Maafterchef, and almost certainly difficult to overcome if something happened to Skateman.
Absolutely. He would still have...
Could. slow and steady can be a very useful strategy and certainly a viable in a race, but it does also. But at the same time, sometimes there's no amount of slow you can go that will keep the tower from deciding it's your turn to die.
So the best best floor per run so far, at least in this race, neither runner has left the tower. So Maafterchef is in the lead at floor 14. Skateman doing the slow and steady approach mentioned by Deme on floor 8. Speaking
and
of,
both of those are pretty good. They have both. Well, okay, Skateman is still in, but Maafterchef has left the first really big difficulty spike, but has hit the second big difficulty spike. Because the game is a series of difficulty spikes. It's basically.
Yep, and sometimes the tower decides that it's going to impale you on one of those difficulty spikes.
Or some of the non-difficulty spikes, just the regular spikes.
Yep, so V600E, that's a great question. This tournament format is fairly similar insofar as we measure progress by who is able to get the highest within an hour, but there are some differences. Here we have banned any player who has a sub 1 hour time on the any percent leaderboard from participating, to allow new and rising runners to have a chance to show off their stuff, and players are able to
round robin style, so that way these new and rising runners get the opportunity to play a lot more matches rather than our usual double elimination, where sometimes runners, maybe say me, would play their regular match, and their losers bracket match, and that would be that basically. But
right.
In terms of what the runners themselves are doing within a race, it's pretty similar. This is still a best of 3, for example.
Right, and
but we are allowing them to re-enter, whether they wind crystal out or leam out some extra monster that's not Qun, or they simply die. They are allowed to keep re-entering the tower, keep trying to get to higher floors for as long as this hour runs. So this race, no matter what happens, basically, will not be over until this hour is up.
Yep. Or if each runner, say with 5 minutes left, were to be forcibly ejected from the tower, they could say, I think that's probably about as high as I'm going to get. We'd of course respect that. It's now opening up a little bit further. That Maafterchef moving on to floor 17, having to contend with pickets, but it is getting a very nice series of elevators and shooting up to 18, doubling Skateman's level.
Right. That is a tremendous lead, and since we are at about the halfway point, now, one could try and argue that therefore means that Maafterchef basically has this, but moving in the tower is not necessarily linear. That is to say, all floors don't take the same amount of time. For one, of course, if Skateman gets up to these floors, he is also going to have that nice string of elevators that are all fairly close together, and therefore have quicker floors. He's likely not going to be doing quite so much exploration after floor probably 11 or so, because we start seeing more water monsters again, and particularly Krakens, which since both of these guys are using swords, Krakens are super unpleasant.
Oh yes, that ability that they have to reflect some damage back to you, the electroshock talent, quite nasty. We see here Skate taking a moment, collecting his thoughts, while Maafterchef slightly determining whether or not he wants to... that was very nice. The little bit of terrain there meant that Pickett wasn't able to catch up. Pickett's able to move 2 spaces, but not having a familiar is going to make it much more difficult to deal with, because your familiar normally can have defend your honor and fight, and the Pickett has nothing to steal. But against you, I'm sure that Pickett would love one of those tasty holy scrolls, or maybe the tag.
Oh, it looks like he is going to use that Palimpa as an egg bomb against that Pickett, but water on water and Palimpa on a monster at floor 19 is not going to do that great. Maafterchef, honestly, probably maybe a little over worrying about this Pickett, I think. Like, sure, the Pickett can steal from him, and that is bad and sad. But that's probably a lot of resources to spend on a monster that isn't going to kill him.
Sure. Well, if he's concerned about some of his more resource-dense items like his spell ball, it could present a problem. That's one of the terms that Dreamy taught me, is to think about resource density. That yes, a holy scroll is great, but you can only use it once, where a spell ball might have 7 charges, and could definitely let you get out of a few more scrapes. So
that is very true. I think maybe be a good choice to make against a Pickett that he has access to would probably be Poison Ball and then just keep going. He has now reached 420, which means that if he wanted to, he could submit this run to the first at 20 leaderboard, which is always a lovely feeling. But also, he has reached Viper Town, which is another difficulty spike, because Vipers are a very unpleasant enemy. He doesn't have to worry about monster elements anymore, but he does have to worry about the sheer amount of damage a Viper can dish out, and it's a lot. Vipers, what was it? If a U-boat hits like 2 trucks taped together, then a Viper hits like 2 trucks taped together, and they're being used as roller skates or skates for Godzilla.
I like that a lot. Now, I will note that, sadly, because these are seated tower runs, Shawnee misspoke on some previous commentary. These are not eligible to be submitted to the leaderboard. Even though you've freshly generated the seeds, I do not... I believe that we're not accepting randomized runs.
That does make sense.
I think that's... Yeah, I think that's at least... that way you never have a case where, oh, well, yes, but when the moderator said it was okay, nice to have an even standard across the board. And we see here Cutie sleeping on the job, being lazy.
And he's out of fireball charges. That's a rough situation to be in, but maybe not as rough as where Maafterchef is, being surrounded by Vipers, getting a unicorn with him. It looks like he has used a Mahel Seed to get double turns, and is hopefully going to lose that one Viper and maybe put up enough distance. If he can find an intersection, then Monster AI is predictable enough that if he knows how they follow intersections, Oh, there is a wee dog between him and the elevator, and that is going to be sad times. Or at least it could be sad times.
Now, I always say let sleeping wee dogs lie, but in this case he's good. Yes, so he's gonna have to address it somehow. Meanwhile, Skate has shown his displeasure for CUNY, chucking him around the room, trying to throw him into the wall, tossing him into the corner. Clearly, CUNY has been bad. I don't know if he has a pita fruit left.
Strange way to handle this situation. But okay, I guess.
Well, I mean, it has some logic to it that if I was asleep and someone threw me into a wall, I'd probably wake up. But CUNY here, he needs some food. He needs some MP. I think that Skate still has an egg they could possibly feed. If he doesn't have that pita.
If he knows that is a thing you can do, because the game never tells you about that ability.
That's true. So on Maafterchef's side, coming up and reaching floor 22, which definitely no small feat as we reach the 3/4 point on the time.
Yeah, that is an excellent accomplishment here. And on a single run, which is also impressive. It looks like Skateman is just leaving Kuhn to die. I get the impression he doesn't entirely know what to do in this situation. That maybe he expects something that's not going to happen. He does have a pita fruit. He might not know, because he is a new runner, he might not necessarily know that that is what being out of MP looks like.
Yeah, if you've given
to say a sleep trap.
Right. That's if you've always given MP to CUNY before he's run out, you'll never have seen him, lazily sleeping like that, and suddenly your friend has just decided to abandon you. Meanwhile, Maafterchef running away from the Unicorn and Palumpa, finding the elevator, gonna reach floor 23. Very nice.
Right. And this will, I assume, be something that Skateman will learn about. And that is a stealth. That is not good. And moving away from the elevator is making that much harder. I don't think he's going to make it to the elevator.
Well, he could do a pickup, and I imagine that he still has a holy scroll.
Where it is, though. He has backed himself into a corner. That is really not ideal in this situation.
And using the recovery ball against the wall does mean that
he is out.
Yep. With a high score of floor 23, Skate could still pull this back if he were to determine what to do here and hit some of the same elevator trains that Maafterchef has picked up, but may not be aware of what the MP mechanic looks like, and may decide to just abandon CUNY.
23 is nothing to scoff at. 11 is nothing to scoff at. This is a pretty solid. These are solid runs we're looking at. Though we are seeing, I think, for both of them hitting on some of the less well-explained mechanics. Despite having a whole floor of Kuhn yapping at you at this mechanic or that, the game really doesn't take the time to talk to you or give you really any ability to learn more about things except by having them happen. And usually happen to death.
Oh yes, like the fact that if you confuse a bowgun troll, it can still aim at you with perfect accuracy.
Yes. Yes. That is one of those things that you only know about when it happens to you to death on a stream with people watching. And so, let us give them a round of applause for having things happen to them to death.
Yes, and what happens when something happens to you to death? You learn. And then next run, you get a little bit higher. Or maybe the tower doesn't like you that run, but you'll eventually get to a little bit higher. Hitting floor 12. He's got the elevator here. He could reach floor 13. He could also perhaps experiment with his items, see what happens when he gives something. Oh, looks like he's going to give the pita fruit here.
Figured out that MP. He looked at it. He checked the MP status, and now he is back on a roll. And he's not going to waste his time this time, except maybe to get some HP. But it looks like he's thinking last 10 minutes to make a run for it. Now, we missed it the last time we were around, but that right through on floor 13 does see where the elevator on that one is. And this shouldn't be too long the floor.
Yep. Now there is a sleeping volcano right next to it, but he should be able to sneak on in there, no trouble at all.
Even if he couldn't sneak on in there, he could survive a single hit from the volcano. They are spooky, but not that spooky.
Right.
That you couldn't just go for it. I suppose the worst thing would be if he spotted you and got onto the elevator when you are trying to get onto it, and then you would have to move around. Can you lift volcanoes? You can lift volcanoes.
You can lift and I believe also push volcanoes.
Right. And we have and we had Goulet-san's Ted in chat saying that is something that he did focus on in training, at least Maafterchef. I don't know what Skateman's practice is like.
Right. Well, so I can offer a little bit of exclusive insight here that Maafterchef has been trained by none other than Poulet Santé himself, and Skateman received tutelage from Sand Knight, and so we see a little bit of a proxy fight going on here, whether the runners themselves are aware of it or not. Definitely reputations are on the line, and we hear some great cheering in chat. Thankfully, no trash talking. We like to be positive here.
Right. The tower is your enemy, and that's really all the enemy you need. You can't really blame yourself, because at the end of the day, you are fighting a thing that absolutely wants you dead, and you're fighting a fight that you are not, on your first or second run through, expected to win. You're expected to win against most video game enemies. You're not expected to win against the tower.
Yes, in your words, the tower is a cruel mistress. And we see Skate here getting past those sword trolls. Sword trolls can be quite dangerous because they bypass your shield. And with that iron shield giving Skate a defensive 5, that is a significant extra chunk of damage that he took from those blows, but managed to get past 3 trolls with not too high of resource use, but he's staring down that Newell and deciding his options carefully. Now that brief hesitation from the troll is interesting. Its turn order is very strange in this game, and sometimes that can happen when the troll decides it wants to attack, and CUNY decides, oh, I'm going to move. And troll just throws his shoulders up.
CUNY is down now, though at this point, you're probably not going to be wanting to do a lot of actual fair fights. Looks like he's going for the pickup, and he is losing that pickup. That is like I think is it a 50% chance or is it a slightly off of 50% chance?
It's a little better than 50%. It's 62.5 or 5 in 8 chance that you'll be able to pick up an enemy that it is possible to be lifted. Normally there are some enemies that are just too heavy, or in Manueva's case, presumably too puddly to be able to pick up.
Right. Well, I guess maybe in the case of a balloon, too already off the ground? It's weird that you can't pick up a balloon.
Yeah. I know that I've had a few balloons escape from me when I was a kid. Skateman here, skidding on ahead to floor 16, and closing that gap some. Still does have a little under 5 minutes left. Does have a few loops to be able to identify exactly where he needs to go.
Right, except of course that in the room he is currently in, there is no path to exactly where he needs to go. He is going to have to figure out the fastest way there. I think it looks like it's interesting that at no point he is probably feeling the crunch, but he is also feeling the nervousness of not necessarily having a way forward. Picking up that poison ball, that'll probably be pretty useful in all of these picket floors as a way of just getting consistent damage on them. But of course, elevator chain, hooray!
Yeah.
Elevators good, monsters bad.
Yep. All aboard the elevator train as we reach floor 18. Doesn't look like we got a chance to see the elevator on the spin-in. So here, perhaps using that treasure loop to get a sense as to where those rooms are, as we mentioned earlier. Coming up against an Arachne, he could potentially pick it up, but one failed pickup from that Arachne would probably deal. Yeah.
Arachnids are very strong. They are specifically pretty much pure heavy hitters.
Now,
and while they are wind monsters and all the spell balls he has as fires, he is now unfortunately caught between several of them. So he's going for that pickup, flinging it out of the room. It teleported right next to him and is coming up to taunt him after running away. So having to come up to taunt him because that is just how pickets work, folks. But you normally don't see how small their little turnaround radius is. Normally they take them to turn around, like, at least outside of the room.
Yep, yeah, they pick a completely random room just like they hit a warp trap, and it randomly picked the room right next to him.
It didn't pick the room next to him, it picked the same room, but a tile next to him. So much so that for a moment it was just briefly confused about what to do, about whether it should be running away from him or taunting him. Taunting him by coming right up into his range.
Oh, don't worry, Booga. I won't say the word Garsuda. So Skate here still does have
2 minutes left, and that's not an impossible chain, but he would have to hurry, and he would have to still get to, I think it was 23, since Maafterchef got to 22, right? Or did Maafterchef get to 23, and he'd need to get to 24?
The latter is correct. I recorded down a top score of 23 for Maafter.
Alrighty then. So he really has to put on the speed, and I don't think he's going to do it. Well, I would be truly stunned if he, feeling the pressure, changed sort of the entire approach he's been taking up until now, which is to always be looking around, to never be running. And that could be helpful. If Maafterchef had failed to get out of any of the tight spots he got in, that would do it.
Yep.
And I think that it's just not the thing that won him this round, but this is a best of 3. So who knows what will happen next time.
But I'm interested to see if he can at least make it to floor 20, getting halfway up the tower in an hour. Even just getting to floor 19 as he did. That's
very impressive.
Right.
And this was not a friendly tower. Sure, it wasn't a wild nest of traps, but it was still, pretty rough with some of these enemy placements.
Yep. All right, so I've asked the runners to load up the next seed. Yeah, we will validate that they're both loading the same one, and we will get underway.
Sorry about if you got some slight feedback. I moved my head and moved my headphones with it. I'll be right back after a quick second.
Very good. So I'm glad to see both of our runners make it quite as high as they did. I think that they both also had quite a few resources left in their inventories that they could have potentially used to get out of a few scrapes, which told me that they still had a little bit of fuel left in their tanks. So our runners are loading up the next seed here. And
I'm back.
Welcome back. I love the little background there that Maafterchef has.
It's very cute.
Very cute indeed. I think that's a lovely little cutscene for the Konami intro there. Every time I start up the game, it evokes feelings of, ooh, this is going to be good.
It adds like a little bit of impressiveness, and I have to admit that it's sort of the same Rocky effect I see in other places in the back, like the pre-rendered backgrounds, like check as this is going up. It sort of has, I don't know, a nice earthy feel to the start of the game. Otherwise, about leaving the earth and climbing into the azure blue sky.
I love the way you put that. All right, I've confirmed that both runners are on the same seed and have asked them to proceed. We'll let them get outside Ko's house where we start time and then get this next race underway.
Yep. The one thing that we are taking advantage of, besides the seated tower function, is that we are skipping the flashbacks detailing the backstory and ultimately kind of front story of this game. We're skipping Ko's childhood and the loss of his father on a mysterious night where the tower glowed and rain fell over the desert city and all of that Sturm and Drang. And we're just skipping to him being ready to go and leave the tower.
Yep.
Since we don't start time until that point, for one, this ultimately doesn't affect, this bit of speed up doesn't affect the timer, and also naming the main character doesn't affect the timer. It's a pretty solid thing to do. And one thing you can do if you're practicing with a seated tower is to just save basically once you get control of the main character and have him wait outside the house and just reload that save if you want to.
Yep. So I have given the runners the countdown. They'll be on their way shortly here.
Alrighty. And we will be off once again, and we'll see how the approach to the tower were changed by this first run.
Yeah, that's something that I always do like to see is we told the runners what the final score was for the previous match, so they get a little bit of a sense as to how their opponent did. Will Skate decide,
Maafterchef is off and once again has not started his timer. Luckily, Skateman does, and this will be timer enough for both.
Right,
We're also
yes.
here to keep an eye on it.
Yep. I do keep a timer going myself, just in case we were to suffer a stream crash or something like that, or a temporary freeze. We do.
Maafterchef is giving a send up to Kule's Santet, his teacher in all things, here to guide him and give him another tutorial that he will have to sit through.
Yes. So if you joined us for the previous tournament, the Rock Me to the Top 2, we did essentially skip this tutorial floor. One of the features of the randomizer that is available is one to both make Uni shut up and to put all of the items and the elevator right in a straight line in front of you. But for this particular tournament, we decided let's make it so runners can get in the habit of how you would do in any percent run where the randomizer is not allowed. And as a result, they can show off a few tricks they may have learned, such as the skips that Skateman did in the intro. We'll see if he pulls this off successfully again.
Right. There are not a whole lot of things, but there are a couple of quick ways to optimize this. And particularly because as this is a game where, for one, you have a run button, which only is sometimes usable. The game will automatically slow you down if there is an enemy monster near you, which I think is an interesting choice. And I really sort of reflects the way this game can be both very quick and very snappy, but also very turn-based. And that turn order approach is an important one.
Yep. So we see Skate, and going around those 2 text prompts. Very nice. Total of 4 sets of text boxes skipped, if I'm not mistaken, which has given him at least that initial lead again. Starting in the room with the elevator and definitely not taking it so he can build up his resources.
Yep, I always find that unless you're trying to do a first at 10 run, which is at this point an incredibly optimizable run, and that basically Maafterchef not avoiding the track tutorial, or I think the elevator tutorial, both of which are pretty skippable.
Yep. Of course.
Well, in fact, we saw Skateman skip them earlier.
Yep.
It's probably one of the easier ones to skip.
Yep, there's no special timing involved, but of course, not many people would think to jump down a big cliff and go all the way around.
Right, you kind of know that routing is possible in order to do it.
Especially given that so many other places in the tower, you don't find yourself jumping down that amount of elevation.
Right, diamond shield, that is nice. And frankly, I would probably go, screw the risk of it being cursed. That's still, even cursed, basically the best defensive item on the market. Unless you want to make a dispute about the dodge chance of the leather shield, which certainly does become more useful later into the game when and we see Maafterchef is doing what I would do here and saying, okay, yeah, if it's cursed, I'll live with my, like, what was it, 8? My 6 X defense shield. Oh no, it's only the second most defensive shield. How sad.
Yeah, and by raw defense, a steel shield would still give you the same amount with no modifiers on it. So I do think that it's definitely worthwhile to equip, especially because since you're not having to spend as much time healing up on those earlier floors, and can take on encounters much more quickly as a result, and you may not have to dodge certain things, you can actually pick up some speed that way. Now, I didn't see if Skate happened to already have a wind crystal in his inventory. If so, leaving a wind crystal behind is not a huge risk, insofar as if you don't have 2 or more in your inventory already, there is a 1 in 4 chance that an extra one will spawn on the floor. But
that's a neat little quirk.
Yeah.
And the thing that the game makes it a little bit more likely for you to get out and be able. Ooh, a Scarlet Wand. This is a run that is being really nice about inventory items. Because, well, you may want to Stream Wand if you want to go Water Cune, but for the Fire Cune you start with, a Scarlet Wand is the best weapon. The only question is, will you be able to, and do you want to change Cune's element later on? But since it's not cursed, it's fine. And he's not missing out on anything by switching immediately.
Now, he is coming into somewhat of a more precarious situation here. I would definitely use that Fireball, which Skate has immediately done, taking out the susceptible Cyclone. Definitely a heads-up play there, knowing that he'd have to do a lot of damage to it, and Trolls, while they're only dealing 3 or 4 at this point, that adds up quickly when your max health at the time is only 26.
Yep. While the game's level ups do give you diminishing returns in terms of HP gain, and so that the first level up you get is the most important, that does, those smaller amounts do add up over time, at least to a point. And so what's risky early on becomes less risky as time goes on, mostly. Eventually, the risk increases exponentially to a point where the defense of that diamond shield doesn't matter, the extra damage of that Scarlet Wand doesn't matter. But all the same, in the meanwhile, those will be lovely to have, and gaining more HP while you do it, pretty nice.
Yep. So I am glad to see that Skate declined to use the elevator, because I don't believe that he's come across the Scarlet Wand yet. I speak of the devil.
Yep. Nope, that's
that's
a different wand. And that's still pretty good, but we know there's better. The question is, will he find better?
Yep.
Never mind. Go on.
So, I never like to see that a runner, just because they happen to go left or right, misses out on a resource that's the other player managed to pick up. That's why I like the seated tower so much, that at least they do have the potential to get the same items. And
the differences become differences of decision as opposed to just differences of luck, though there is going to be a difference of luck because the RNG for traps and monster movement does change as they move around.
Correct. Now, we saw Skateman there do a little bit of an interesting movement, picking up CUNY after CUNY attacked, and stepping back. That was a perfectly executed AI-1 strat. Sen Knight straining, very much having paid off, and I believe that must be the Scarlet Wand there. So this is going to be
time for him to make a decision soon enough about what he is going to do. And what he is going to pick up, what he is going to equip, etc. He might... No, he has decided that he is going to commit to the Scarlet Wand. In a way, he didn't with the Diamond Shield, which is interesting. He might be more of a fan of probably the Leather Shield. The Mirror Shield, while a good option because it has the ability to reflect spells, probably takes a little bit more time and build up to really shine. Also, wow, that is a lot of enemies. That is a lot of trolls.
Yeah, I do believe he'd be able to one-shot the trolls. Now having the Scarlet Wand getting both the bonuses, but now that the monsters have closed in, this has become a little bit more perilous. He does still, if he were to equip his shield, his diamond shield, yep, that's a great move. It does not take a turn to equip or unequip something. I do believe that if he were to, say, take out the Cyclone with a Fireball exactly as he's doing, he'll be able to take out the trolls who are now only dealing 1 damage without too much difficulty. CUNY's health is fine. He's got this.
Oh, that was probably not the best of decisions. I think he probably would be better off just fighting from this point onward.
Yep, and I'm sure as he sees the 21 damage that he's dealing, he'll have no doubts about continuing that, clearing out the trolls, which do at least give a decent amount of experience at 4 apiece to him and CUNY. Meanwhile, Maafterchef here, deciding whether or not to take on that balloon, decides to step into range. I see that the training from Quile Sante has paid off. Quile not afraid to step right into the maw of danger. And speaking of danger, here comes a Manueva.
Right, and that Fire Wand, that Scarlet Wand, is really not going to be doing him a lot of favors here. I don't think, or rather, I don't know necessarily exactly how that works. If a Fire Wand deals less damage here than a regular wand with a fire spell, or if it just doesn't deal anything particular, whether or not there is a canceling out or an active decrease, basically. I don't know how the math of that works out.
I do. So in this particular case, because it would be a fire spell anyway, having the Scarlet Wand gives you the same type of attack bonus, essentially, which is something like a 1/8 increase to the damage, stacked on top of the wand bonus, which itself is a 1/8 increase. And so it's definitely better to keep that equipped. Should the CUNY spell be of a different element, the situation might be a little bit different.
Right. Alright, thank you. That is a very useful little bit of knowledge base. One of those small amounts of differences that you will really only find through either using a pre-established knowledge base, which is a wonderful thing to have to take advantage of, or by trial and error. The game gives you these numbers in a direct level fashion. And so, warp trap, but elevator.
Yes. And so even though you normally want to grab a few resources on floor 4, he has explored a decent amount already. I would say just take the elevator, head on up. Again, we see a egg on floor 6. Sand Knight does bring up a possibility. He might not be aware that CUNY will automatically come with you if you go up the elevator, which, again, the game never tells you this. So,
it is a wonderfully opaque little game. And that is admittedly one of the things that I think makes it fun to revisit as a runner, is that it is such a, it's like 20-something years old at this point, but you're still learning new things. There's still a lot to learn and to revisit and to optimize.
Yep.
So, and this is, I think, one of the particularly fun things about this tournament is getting to see people learn so much. Which all at once.
Now, CUNY...
Oh, he's lost Kuno on that side, and that's going to put a big crimp into things, losing him so early.
Yep, and now Sand Knight has said that, and there he comes up to the trap. If he had set him to AI1, he would have probably been able to make it back there in time in order to...
I think he did set him to AI1. I saw him adjusting the AI at the very least.
I did. I missed if he said it first thing or if CUNY potentially had a chance to wander off out of the room before he said it. Taking off the diamond shield here, I wonder if he's looking to make his way back into... Yep. Taking the Flame Express train right back to Monspaya as the Flame happily obliges and sends him over to his bed.
Now, he has sworn never to Wind Crystal, but I think that this would have been a great place to have a Wind Crystal and use it. Just to be able to keep that Diamond Shield and that Scarlet Wand. For that matter, that Fireball, though it has lost some uses, he'd be able to see exactly how many. And to come back with Kuhn bright and refreshed, and to make another, hopefully, quick go of it. But as it is, he does still have a couple of levels on that Kuhn, though he no longer has any gear, and there's no assurances that he will get any gear for a while. So it is possible he could get caught in like a negative feedback loop. And there goes Kuhn over on Maafterchef's side.
Yeah, and as Septic says here, at least the never give up part of it, the fact that Skate, although he didn't have a Wind Crystal, the fact that he did decide to leave the tower does mean that he's coming back at this with a fresh run, remembers to grab Kuhn from the back room, your monster hut, and is heading right back into this. I do like that play to, at the very least at that point, not try to go up further with without a familiar, but instead to proceed.
Yeah. Kuhn has managed to get a couple of levels, and those will stick with him, though nothing else of his will, and that does make it a little bit of a tricky situation. But on the other hand, it's not a huge sink of time that he's spent, and I think that's what he's going for. He's thinking that he will be able to make it to a higher floor with his monster this time without it in the same amount of time it would take him to climb without a monster is probably what he's thinking. And that will pay itself off.
We see a reference to Mystical Ninja starring Goman, the lovely, lovely song that plays when Impact is called. And yes, and I do have that stuck in my head. Thank you very much. Now, one of the things that we will find out here is whether Skate has had a chance to practice re-entry. It is a particular skill, because if you have not seen these floors before, they can be a little bit tricky. You might think that you'd be able to get up, but you find a cliff, as Skate ran into there. Of course, skate could also be scavenging for items. Definitely not a bad thing to do when you're coming in. Yep.
Casting Flayfinger, a spell you will more or less never see under any other circumstance.
Yep. I do find it very interesting the way that they named those spells. Flay is not a word you hear very often, but
and it's not really a fire-associated word, which is kind of interesting. Like, you'd think, based on how it's used here, that it's linked with flames, but no, it's not. It's pretty much completely unrelated. Oh, and a lean fruit. That is a nice thing to have. It is basically a one-use get-out-of-jail-free card. While it technically has a use as some sort of emergency wind crystal that basically destroys the monster you had with you, it's probably, especially in this context, better used to get rid of one monster that you really just don't want to deal with.
Absolutely. So, Maafterchef here, up on floor 10, finding a vital sword, might decide to take it, given that he doesn't have a living familiar that would boost his attack, and he takes it. So he could take on that Dreamin', which would be a little bit of extra XP without the most risk in the world.
Right. There's nothing else around him. Tim, though that volcano is coming that way, he is gone before he has to think about the volcano. Well, if he knows what he's doing, and it looks like he probably will have avoided the volcano in one way or another. Monsters do like to follow the left-hand rule and keep themselves going on that sort of path. And it's very possible that you can sort of walk with or sideways to the flow of monsters, so as to keep yourself from running into too many fights.
At least as far as they'll follow that within corridors, within rooms, they'll pick a random exit, except for the one that they came from, and head for that. So Skate here, looking to try to sneak by Gosh. But
there is no option.
No.
It's worth noting, you mentioned earlier about re-entry, that while there are theoretically an infinite number of arrangements for other floors, and functionally, basically infinite, the first floor has a limited number of variations, and the second floor, after your first entry, will always be the same, and Skateman does not know what that same is.
Yep, Skateman here, exploring around floor 2, no further resources, but you know one place where you can find resources for this game, as well as a lovely community, is our Discord. We've seen Shawnee there put bang Azure into chat and see a link to our Discord server, as well as information about the tournament bracket. We have a number of... And schedule, yes. We have a number of talented runners, some talented artists. So even if you don't play this game, but just like to hang out or see some fun fan art, everyone's welcome in our friendly community.
Right. Also, if you came here maybe expecting a race of the Game Boy Color Azure Dreams, we also have a little sub-community for running that game, which is pretty different in a lot of ways, though its basic core is still the same. Go
ahead.
One thing that, while we're on the subject of learning re-entry, I think makes this a particularly good format for new runners is that, in many ways, trying to do a single entry at 80% is a trap one can fall into after seeing the faster runs of any percent or the previous tournaments, where it's not necessary. You can do a multi-entry any percent onto the leaderboard, and is a great way to get started. And also, focusing only on single entry does sort of, as I mentioned before, cut off that macro loop, which features a lot of re-entry and learning the sort of general layout patterns of that first floor and other weird little tricks. It opens up the game to being a much, much larger game.
Yeah, one that includes the dating simulator, one that includes the town building aspect that you mentioned. There are fun little mini games that can be played.
Right, there's various forms of gambling. There's a questionable Manzai routine. There's curry.
Yes, cannot forget curry. And we even have a category in the leaderboard dedicated to even just getting your character to be able to say curry to another character instead of sorry.
That is oddly specific, but I appreciate it.
Yes.
And also, doing multiple entry can help build up to other runs, since you mentioned that part. And that element that, for example, there is Bookless, which is basically playing a full Azure Dreams, playing the full game of Azure Dreams, except not filling out your sister's little monster booklet, not filling out the entire Pokedex, essentially.
Yes. And
there's 100% for if you want to fill out the book, or if you want to fill out the Pokedex. And those are both fun alternative runs.
Definitely. So we see here, getting back to the run at hand, that Maafterchef reaching floor 12 in the room with the blue color, which will always spawn on floor 12, except when it doesn't. That being if there's an item room or something that ends up overriding it. And taking out that Dreamin. Now, one option that is available to him, which he may not have considered, is he did pick up an egg on floor... Oh, not even going for the blue collar.
Just that going to ignore it. I think he is electing not to hatch that egg. I think he is probably committing to not hatching that egg at this point and not worrying about what's inside it.
Yep.
And that makes a fair bit of sense. He is reaching the point where a straight fight, that volcano did not like that, and he is just getting bad luck. This is bad.
Now, I don't think that Blaze Ball has been used much, so I think that probably would end up... definitely not a bad idea to use another Blaze Ball charge there, because at least your spells cannot miss. Walking past the color a third time, it actually would not have taken very much to be able to pick it up. But
no. Admittedly, at that point, it felt almost taunting.
Yes, well,
there's another egg.
Yes.
This is a pretty egg-happy tower, where this is his third egg, and I think he's maybe... Oh, there's a red sand. That's pretty useful for strengthening up his sword, though at this point, I think, especially without a familiar, a straight fight is not that great. Skateman has now made it to a new high score for him, and though Maafterchef is still going for a high score for this run. For this race, anyway. That's better way of putting it.
Yes, and at least it will help out a little bit taking out Dreamins, and Dreamins are still a good source of experience, 56 if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And that could make the difference between a monster being able to take him out in one or two hits that he might have to take at some point.
Yep. And Skate finding out the hard way that you cannot equip the hammer that's only for trolls. Now, I've edited the game at some point to force it to put on the hammer, and it looks like a corrupted shield graphic, if I recall correctly.
Interesting. I know that he's put on a golf wand. I don't know if he has anything better because the Gulf Wand is almost unquestionably the worst wand. The worst elemental wand, anyway. I suppose it's technically not the worst wand. It has some extra purpose. It'll at least do a little extra damage to... Actually, how would that balance? Would that just balance out? Against like a water monster?
Against a water monster, I think it would be a little bit more effective because then completely balanced out because the elemental weakness is stronger than the elemental advantage. So
it would be still a little bit better than like having nothing or having a different sort of wand, but still not necessarily great.
Right. Actually, no, I take that back. I think that only applies to different things. But in any case, it's definitely does work out more favorably against a water monster to have a golf wand. There is a link in the randomizer website to the encyclopedia that I'm working on, and there you can see all the lovely damage calculation formulas for yourself. Additionally, a member of the community, Chai, has produced a damage calculator tool. It's a desktop application. We are seeing a parallel situation here on Maafterchef's side between a Kraken and a Newell down to 11 HP. He could probably use a resource on one of the two of them, but the other one would take him...
So he is, I think, trying to decide whether or not this is his wind crystal moment. He's deciding to stick with it.
That level up. Wow, that was clutch.
I'm not sure. One of his eggs might help him get out of this if he uses it as a bomb. I think that wasn't a balloon, but is a balloon. And that is going to get him out of this mess with his life intact. Round of applause on that. I probably would have wind crystals and Scarford out of here. I'm not going to lie. Skateman appears to be locked in a bit of a pit.
Yes, I would in this case try to bag CUNY. Or he has done one better and gotten the balloon trapped himself until he can have a fair and level fight. Skate here, still not deciding to hatch eggs at this point, but is doing a bit of inventory management and is, yes, taking a moment to heal up on the elevator. That's very important. At least when you're not down to the last few minutes of a race, I always do advise that because you never know what horrors await you on the next floor.
Yep, he could walk right into a death trap.
As it is, it's a Newell. It is aggro now. Yep.
He has a tiny bit of a lead on it that could try and use. In this case, it looks like he's using it to find out where the elevator is. It's fairly close. So hopefully he won't get pincered and will manage his movement just carefully enough to get out of this floor.
That's very well done. I probably would have ended up using a Hell Seed instead to put one extra space and then a few extra spaces. But just using an exit loop isn't too bad. Goes for the pickup on the troll, gets it, and he will be... I expected did the troll to drop when he got paralyzed, but no, it just stood there. Skateman using an ice rock ball to try and get out of this balloon's path. He takes a little bit of damage doing so, but does manage to make it out alive. Yes, And that is a pretty good move there, given that CUNY's on a fairly low health. Now coming up to this balloon and deciding how he wants to take it, he will be able to tank a few hits, but not too many. And that, in this particular case, I don't know how the math works out if the elemental advantage or disadvantage caused by adding the wind there against that fire monster would have been meant it would have been more advantageous to remove the wand, but using a ball there to take it out, you don't have to deal with that math.
Yep. Maafterchef getting some crazy elevator luck, showing us the rare face of the save and quit option, which will allow you to take a break at least, though I don't think he wants to be doing that right now. But worth noting, will not let you save scum. Skateman, because he is on a second entry, is not going to have that same elevator luck. He might have better elevator luck, but he's probably going to have worse elevator luck, because it would be hard to have better elevator luck than Maafterchef has gotten than for these past couple of floors.
Yep. So here, deciding to use the truth glasses on that egg that he picked up, a volcano egg. Yeah.
He's probably made the right choice not to invest a whole lot into it.
Right, and using those truth glasses. Oh wow, another close elevator. I would say either attempt the pickup, or just say, you know what, it might end up, or better still, if he were to step one step to the left, if a picket tries to steal from you, and you are standing on an item, it will always, if the steal is successful, it will always take the item that you're standing on first, so you can even deliberately pass turns.
Though not advisable here, because there is that sleeping arachnid. Oh, that was very nice.
Yep.
He's
you're
not sure what to do, but he has that Oleem.
Yeah, I would use it in this case.
Yep.
Go ahead and chuck it at that U-boat, because he would be taking a hit in whichever other direction he walked, unless he was able to take it out with one hit. And perhaps we'll get a little bit of breathing room, get a little bit of HP back with each step he takes. Meanwhile, Skate here up on floor 20, entering Viper Town, and here comes one of the friendly or not so friendly residents of Viper Town, part of the greeting committee regardless. Now, in a situation like this, I like to take an item that I don't need and chuck it at the Viper. The Viper will have a decent chance of turning around. Perhaps even like a coin there. That's in the room. And
is this something that can be done with all monsters, or is it because that Vipers have a specific AI for dealing with eggs that could be applied to other monsters?
So that is another possibility, that if you were to, because Vipers in real life eat eggs, that's an ability that they have in the game, and they will seek those out preferentially. So you can chuck an egg to distract a Viper, but in this case, any monster that you hit when it is not aggroed, it basically forgets which room it was headed towards, and will pick another room at random.
Maafterchef, not as bad as the Viper though. No, but what he will use, Skateman once again using that ice rock ball, but because of where he has placed it, it will do him no good.
Yeah, he would have to, he's taken a strong hit. CUNY took a strong hit from that clown, and he's wondering what he should do.
Can do for that matter to get out of this, but I think the situation here is pretty bad.
I don't know if any damage has been done to the Manueva. The pillar might take out the Manueva. Oh.
The water ball, he's probably hoping that does something other than what it does, but never work to save you. Or rather, balls never directly affect you. And so
Yes.
will affect what it ends up. It looks like Skateman is probably about to go down. I am seeing his message in the Discord. And he has asked for a mercy rule, I think.
I believe that's something that we can grant. And if Maafterchef is willing and Skateman is willing, we can perhaps see a friendly game 3.
Right, since we are ending a little bit earlier relative to other matches in the tournament.
So as we work out what our runners will do next, whether they will join for a friendly, whether they will join for interview, or none of the above.
Right, we will see what is going on.
Now, I will note that occasionally runners will turn off all pings because they prefer to focus purely on the run. So it's possible that Maafterchef may end up just showing us how high he can get if those pings are turned off. We'll need just a moment to get ourselves organized here. As long as we are seeing the run take place, Maafterchef has decided to use a sleep ball on that unicorn.
Oh,
Lord.
Chaos Trap, 1 square from the elevator. It looks like Maafterchef is agreeing to a friendly third. The third if Skate feels like doing so.
Yep. Looks like Maafterchef will need a short moment. And
yes, I think we all could take one. I certainly will, and we'll get everything set up for a friendly third.
Yep. Maafterchef has a very good reason to need a moment. He's got a puppy that needs attention. And we have, and if you need a moment to grab a drink, take a bio break, grab a snack. I know that I myself have been proverbially munching popcorn, but not actually doing that because, well, you wouldn't want to hear quite so much crunching and munching on screen.
Alrighty.
Speaking of puppies, on the Azure Dreams Discord, we've just created a brand new channel called Azure Pets, where we're encouraging the community members to show their fluffy, feathered, or other friends in their lives. Still doing a little bit of organizing here as Maafterchef attends to his puppy. I have to say that.
And also, we make sure if Skateman actually wants to do a friendly third.
Right, yes. That's the little bit of organizing I was alluding to. We've got some fans of popcorn in chat here. Lady Deme, when you're sitting down and you're watching a show or you're watching a run, what is your favorite snack to munch on?
Generally popcorn. I am a popcorn fan, and I have a variety of flavoring options for popcorn. I get specially flavored olive oils to make my popcorn experience more enjoyable, etc. I am a popcorn nut, basically.
I approve. So do you ever put furikake on your popcorn?
No, I have not. And it looks like Skateman is going through a friendly third, so we will get to see that happen and see how much they have learned from these past couple of runs that they'll be able to apply to a third run.
Yes. I happen to think that we'll be seeing some of the same from Maafterchef. It served him well enough to get up to floor 20 in this race with time left on the clock. And we did see a little bit of a divergence from Skateman. Skateman took a little bit more in the way of risks this run, probably looking at that previous time. And seeing that he was at least a little bit behind, so I'm expecting to see that he might try to do that, although he might have felt that sort of little bit of added hurriedness might have caused a misstep, so we will see.
No, I ultimately think that a lot of his problems came down to warp traps, and those are things really where the amount of time you take to traverse a floor won't help you. While his monster management is generally very good. Sometimes the tower just wants you to die.
Yep, that is very true. So we see that Skate here is loading up that third seed. I will at least confirm that he has the correct number here. He does. I will let him know that he can proceed. Of course, he won't get underway until
ready, but it looks like Maafterchef is loading up his new seed, etc., etc.
Yep. And for what's worth, if you too would like to try your hand, you say, "Oh, I can do better than these runners." First off, good luck. But second of all, you can use that URL that you see right on your stream, plop that in, put your bin that you've pulled off of your game disk into the website, and you'll be able to try the exact same tower as these runners took on. Of course, if you do well, and even if you don't, you'd be welcome to join us in the community and talk about all things Azure Dreams, as well as some of the other fun features that the randomizer has.
Yep, including changing up what familiar you start with, changing up the elements of monsters, changing up on what floors you find monsters, giving you access to the second tower, which is still one of those things that I am utterly gobsmacked by the existence of to this day. And it looks like Maafterchef also has the correct seed, so we will be ready to get the race underway very shortly.
Yep. Yes, as Septic has mentioned in chat, the second tower is quite scary, but there have been some runners who have been brave enough to conquer it.
Yep.
And we see here a nice panorama or panaround.
Of
And
Co's house. I admittedly, I don't think I've ever looked at the back of Co's house. I mean, I don't know why I would want to. It just, I don't think has ever occurred to me that is a thing you can do.
That's very true.
New every day.
Yes. I know that when I'm running around the town, most of the time I treat it like Animal Crossing, where you've got that aesthetic view. But here, you can rotate that camera around. You can even, if you get the bike, go on it and go into something like it's not quite a first person's perspective, but it kind of zooms on in there and changes up the controls. There's all sorts of little fun tricks and tips like that.
Which are more or less completely useless, but
yes.
fun. It is a neat little game with fun little tricks that mostly you will never think about.
Yes. And even a few hidden button combinations out there. We see that Skate is deciding to say goodbye to his mom before leaving. I know that about 50% of the time when I'm starting a run, that's how it ends up going for me. So,
much sympathies.
All right, what kind of names do we have this time?
I noticed that Skateman had named himself Dat Boy, or he could be Mr. Dat Boy.
Yes, I always do think it's fun that whichever option you choose, CUNY responds exactly the same way, or Poulet, as on Maafterchef's side.
Right. Let's see now.
So,
with things on a fairly low pressure note, this is also just a good chance to just sort of, for example, practice optimizing this first floor or on this first entry without really having to actually worry about optimizing it correctly.
Yes, this is something that Skate's shown that he can do. His movement has been clean on the first floor. He's gotten all those skips, and even his mashing's been pretty good. He's gotten through those text boxes just about as fast as you can. So, definitely something that he has down, but always good to practice. And one of the things that we didn't mention before is why the runners decide to put CUNY to change his lineup to put him directly behind Co. That is a quite useful way to...
basically.
Yep.
Because, for example, saying all of the work traps that Skateman hit last race, which he was lamenting, it could be worse. If Co gets teleported away, you know where Kyun is. But if Kyun gets teleported away because he steps on tiles you were not stepping on in front of him, you have no idea where he is. He could be literally anywhere.
Yep.
Is he near to you? Is he far to you? Would you get to him in time before something terrible happens if you turned left? Or would you get him get to him in time if you turned right? Who knows? Not you. The first item found is a steel sword. That certainly means that both of them win the match. That's how that works, right?
I believe that is exactly how that works. I've looked at the numbers myself. Malicious Scroll.
Malicious Scrolls are, I think, on a casual run through. Oh, someone else found the work trap this time.
That's always.
Though, to be honest, I think you actually might want to fight the troll early on. When you haven't gotten that first level, the troll is easy enough to take out and gives enough EXP that you can get that first level, get that 10 essential EXP point, 10 essential HP. That's the difference between you dying a painful death if you don't, or having to burn a resource on a flame, and you being able to fight a flame. A Scarlet Wand is back again.
Yes, and this time we see Skate have no hesitations with equipment as he puts that on. That will.
The first time around, he put the Scarlet Wand on right away, but not the Diamond Shield. And now it is Maafterchef's time to find the warp trap that on this run was actually bypassed by Skateman because that troll. I didn't see him change the lineup for Kuhn, so who knows where Kuhn might be now.
Right, and he also did take the long way around, although the pathway does loop, just inviting you to take a nice friendly stroll around. If it does connect up in a way like that, you can jump the loop, and looks like Poulet here, down on floor 2.
That is not a pleasant situation to be in, and I wonder if Maafterchef will stay in the tower were given any option not to. I think... Ooh, that's tricky. I think I would probably just leave now. It doesn't make a huge difference. He keeps the thing.
Yep.
There are wind crystals on the second and third floor that he could use if he really wanted to.
Yep, including one in the elevator room. So, which I think he's already picked up. So yeah. I would definitely wind crystal out, but to each runner, his or her own. So,
yep. It can be a little bit tricky to think about that sort of decision making if you're not used to it. If you're used to thinking about it as a one shot and you're done. The know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. That is, to me at least, the heart of casual Azure Dreams play. He's a little bit absent, but looks... No! He almost went for it, but nope. Just dropping it instead.
Right. Knowing that he doesn't need 2 of them in his inventory. At first I thought he was just going to hold it aloft to taunt the world, taunt the tower, and say, "You're not going to make me leave tower." But now having to sheepishly back away from that cyclone, he would be able to take it out with a spell ball charge.
Right.
But now he's building up. Because it was a little bit far enough away, he was able to at least let it fall through that left-hand path that you mentioned. Meanwhile, Skate here up on floor 3 as well is dancing back a little, up and down a little bit before taking on that Palumpa, using the high ground, which does give you essentially the equivalent of the elemental advantage. So with the same type of attack bonus and the wand bonus, that Palumpa is no more.
Right. Frankly, it's not necessarily something you need to worry about on a Palumpa, but it's always good to get into good habits of how to deal with monsters instead of, casually shrugging your way through them, because you never know when you'll be in some, obscure situation, like, say, doing a re-entry without a shield of any sort. And when you have 16 HP, those Palumpas can be a little bit unpleasant.
Yeah,
hugely nasty, but unpleasant.
I've definitely seen them bully a low-level CUNY before. And one thing that I'd like to point out that I think was nice that Skate did there was he gave that anti-chaos herb to CUNY. The game tells you that nothing happened, but in fact, CUNY did get 3 MP out of that, which, considering that Flame Sword does not cost very much to cast, is a nice little boost, especially as getting pita fruit is not a guaranteed thing. There are some mechanics in the game that makes it more likely that they'll spawn after every 5-6 floors. But
not a certainty, just
not a
more
certainty.
likely.
Yep.
Everything is only more or less likely in Azure Dreams. Oh, that flame has found a go-up trap. One of the nicer traps to find. It's a bit faster than using the elevator, if only because you skip the save and quick text box. Though on an early floor where you can do your own fighting, it's rather nice to control your own fate, but luckily you can trigger a trap that didn't go off the first time you hit it. So that go-up trap's benefit will still be there for you.
Right. And I do love the fact that it's not just beneficial traps that you can do that with. You can pick up CUNY and use a warp trap to zip around to another point of the tower. May not be a better point, but it's going to be probably a different room. And you can even, if you felt inclined for it, turn yourself into a frog. I'm not sure why you would, but you have that option available to you. Yep.
The game set of tools are roughly uniform across things, regardless of the actual benefit in doing so. But because the game set of controls and options are kind of uniform in that way, it causes items to be more useful sometimes than it appears. Until I discovered the community, I never realized that Olim fruits were so good. I thought of them as kind of worthless. Not totally worthless, but when you're playing casually and therefore bringing along monsters you want to keep, and Olim is just sort of a space taker-upper. But no, it is a one-use get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yep. Speaking of Olims, I neglected to give our second Olim point to Maafterchef there for his win in the previous run. That's now...
I was aware of it, but wasn't sure whether or not that would switch us to being done before we wanted to be done. But it looks like everything's fine.
Yep.
I think in that case it's just a matter of marking. A winner or loser that I was thinking of.
And I think that you can even mark a winner or loser without ending the stream. We'll just handle that as and when it comes to it. Yep. Now, we do see an interesting situation on Skate's side here on floor 5, that because that balloon was 2 levels lower, and is now only 1 level lower, he was not able to hit it before, but can hit it now. Despite the fact that it's flying and is further off the ground, that changes nothing in this case. By contrast, we have Maafterchef. Magic Terra, was marked as getting the second point based off of the previous race. This is game 3. It is a friendly third.
There is nothing to be won or lost here. Pride. Though, at the end of the day, these runners should be proud of what they did. The game really does expect you to die. We keep saying that, and we keep saying that because it is eminently true. It is bottomlessly the case that the game expects you to die. It expects you to die right about where Maafterchef is right about now, and expects you to take a couple of runs to collect your breath before going any further, and then hitting a couple of difficulty spikes down the line, so that basically every floor after the 6th that you can reach is a win.
Yep, and we see that Maafterchef did escape that small bouquet of blooms, And Skate's in a bit of a parallel situation here. He's got two monsters in melee with him, using the medicinal, absolutely the right thing to do, because even if he took a step to the side, that Manueva would still get a hit in on him. Gets the kill on the Manueva. The balloon will only have a chance to damage him, not CUNY, which is great. Using a Firebolt to take it out. A solid play. CUNY does walk into melee, which is a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah, Kyun is sometimes just a little bit stupid.
Yeah, he decides, oh, I can't go behind you because there's no tile there. I guess you wanted me to walk right in front of the enemy. Okay, Ko, I'll do that because I'm your friend.
Right. I can't just stay where I am like a reasonable monster. No. That would just be wasting my turn.
Oh, yeah.
No one likes a turn waster.
And we see CUNY up to his old proclivities again. Meanwhile, Maafterchef here, deciding not to use the treasure loop, putting it in the bag for later. I didn't get to see exactly how much of the floor he's explored. It looks like he's explored a decent amount of it, so that's probably a reasonable move.
Yeah, I think so.
Having used that monster loop, he is able to see those monsters at a distance and comes across a nice, very handy go-up trap.
Now you know that he definitely knows that you can feed a go-up trap to go up. He just didn't want to. Essentially, he probably didn't feel like the time it would save would be worthwhile.
Yep. Now coming across a clown here. One of the interesting things is there are certain enemies in the game that have essentially a hidden add to damage that the game calculates as if they were holding a weapon. Now, the clown I would have thought would have been one of those.
Because they have that little scythe.
Yep, and they hit so hard. But no, the clowns just hit quite hard for their level.
Frail, though. Which is... Well, okay, they're pretty frail if you have Kyun, because they are wind.
Yep. So we see Maafterchef tank 2 hits here to go straight for the elevator, using not one of his items as a resource, but using his HP as a resource, which I can very much appreciate, making it up to floor 10.
And with walking right into a pickle.
Yeah. Deciding to take out the volcano, or at least do some damage to it, choosing that to be the larger threat. He could have just backed out of the room, like Homer receding into bushes. Choosing the medicinal, definitely a good option here. Even if much of it
avoided a couple of interesting looking items, potentially very useful ones in that room, in order to avoid the series of monsters that his quick camera work revealed were heading directly towards him. He's still got that U-boat directly in front of him that he's going to have to figure out what to do with. But he get out of that situation.
Yep. So we see here Maafterchef decided to use the fireball on that Dreamin' after it put him to sleep. Thankfully, there is one Skate checking to make sure that CUNY is behind him. You got me on this? Because I'm going to fight this U-boat. You do need to stay behind me. It's for your own good. Skate choosing to take a fight on the high ground, presumably. He could still...
He's taking a second, possibly to think over his options, possibly to take a quick little break because the stakes here are low.
Yes, although it doesn't mean that the runners are not feeling any pressure. I know that a lot of them, quite reasonably, aren't going to try to measure themselves against some one of the beasts in our community, like Baldwin or Wugga, but are going to measure themselves against their own progress, which is always the right way to do with speedrunning, is to focus on being the best you can be and looking to improve over what you can.
Yeah, that is the right approach, particularly for a game like this, which is so variable in its outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Comes at the end of the day, how your opponent does is not a reflection entirely of anything.
Yeah.
Anything. It could have been that they are more or less skilled than you. It could have been that they got more or less lucky on even just traps, even in a fixed tower scene. Yeah, there we go. He's fine.
Yep.
Going to drop Tune, which probably doesn't work out in an ideal sort of way. But
right.
He does have at least a little lead over those U-boats, and with any luck, oh, that's not fun.
Yeah. Not. I would probably end up. Okay, he's got a pillar ball. That's not a kill.
Yeah, not quite enough, because the spell balls are elemental.
Yes.
And
Now,
most of them are fire elemental.
yes, at least for
damaging, the only one that isn't fire elemental is acid rain. Did I get that right?
acid rain. I might have put some misinformation out there. I believed it was non-elemental at first because the ball itself is non-elemental compared to the other balls, but the damage it deals is actually water element.
Right.
So here we see a correct use of spell ball there, understanding that it is going to be a fired spell. And he comes across that same clutch go-up trap.
But he doesn't use it, which I think might not be a great idea. The 7th floor is not one you really want to be exploring. But then again, wait. I don't know if he's able to use the go-up trap with Kuhn in his hand. I think he will switch to an at-hand command as opposed to an at-feet command, right?
It may well have that. I still think you can advance over one page, and I do believe it's still an option.
But it would be more... Oh, when you have Kuhn, you have at feet. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yep. But he finds the elevator regardless, and skates is... Yep. Meanwhile, Maafterchef, again, finding the blue color in this room where he spawns, and...
again, ignoring it. Which, by the way, props for floor 12, essentially Kuhnless the whole time.
Yes, and floor 12 at 22 minutes in, just getting to floor 12 is a feat in and of itself. I remember Shawnee often will mention the fact that growing up, that was something that he would set himself. Okay, I'm going to try to get up to floor 12 all in one go, and it's a good goal to set for yourself, because you go past the difficult water floors. It shows you a lot of what the game has to offer. Maafterchef here...
It also is the first key item you can find in the tower. Mm-hmm. I think you can find... No, I think you can find the blue cape on your first run, but maybe you can't. I'm trying to remember.
I do believe that is at a higher floor.
Right. But yeah, it is definitely the first key item you can find in the tower. So it acts as a good benchmark.
Yep.
I tend to think of 12 as also when I get to floor 12, I think to myself, yeah, I did a good job. That is, to me, a solid run. Because while any run after 6 is is a good run. I do tend to think of like 12 as kind of like a threshold, or maybe like an average sort of thing. Like on a good day, if the tower isn't especially out to screw me and I play pretty well, I can expect a 12 from where I am in the game, and so that's always nice to acknowledge.
Yeah. So we see Skate here opt not to take the life wand. That's a solid choice. If you already have a Scarlet, which in this case is the matching element, no need to switch it. Although I do have a soft spot for the life wand myself. We see that
pretty nice wand. I also think that the paralyzed wand is one of those wands where it's not going to necessarily always be saving the day. It's not perfect, but when it goes off for you, you think to yourself, wow, that's my life made a lot easier.
Oh yes, I think it's something like a 1 in 16 chance of paralyzing a monster, which, you know, isn't something like 8%, just off the top of my head, a little bit more than that. Maafterchef, unable to resist the urge to cosplay as a frog, and is going to be hopping around the tower.
Now, he does have the monster loop going, so he can see where everything that will destroy him is. Also, no, Sand Knight, that boy is on the other side of the screen. That's just a frog. But also, Shawnee chiming in with the fact that it would be a very hard thing to do, but you can get the blue cape on your first tower run if you talk to the owner of the bar in town first. Which, I mean, I guess that's a thing you can do if you want to.
You know, I was actually thinking that if you thought it was likely that you were going to be doing a re-entry, talking to Selfie would probably be a little bit of a speed up, because her dialogue is a little bit faster than talking with Ghosh.
Yes, I hope so. I'm not sure like how that factors in once you factor in the time it takes to go talk to her, but that would be a fun thing to try out if you're trying out things to practice to see what could save you time.
Sure, yeah. So we saw Skate there do a little bit of A1 a little bit further back to save some HP, which she then used when taking on that volcano. Now coming up, though, against this troll, he will not be able to take another hit.
Takes a rare misstep on that one.
Yeah. I mean, he does have...
He has lots of tools, though. He has 2 Oleans, he has a Tumna Fruit, he has a holy... No! Oh, thank goodness. Sorry. For a moment. I'm glad he caught that one, because that would have been a sad way to die.
Yes, but...
Not a shameful way to die, just a sad one. One of those ones where you're maybe a little disappointed in yourself.
Yes. Though, of course, I have seen it happen. Or where you decide to eat the Tumna Fruit yourself, which I always think would taste pretty slimy, but it then is added insult to injury, because, of course, when you're a frog, you take extra damage. You take, actually, I think, double. So Ko would have been dead and then some. Here, yep. As long as he doesn't miss that attack, which he does not, he takes out the troll, hits where it was just to make sure it's extra gone, and finds his way.
Yep. Over on Maafterchef's side, he is showing off. Was just showing off that the Kraken's like electroshock counter effect still works if it is a frog. It still hurts you.
Mm-hmm.
An elevator on the turn in onto the 15th floor over on Maafterchef's side.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll be able to get to that pretty quickly. Looking around to make sure that he's not about to get sandwiched in that one wide corridor with that Garuda coming up behind him. But it looks like it's a pretty clear shot.
Yep. And we have Skate here exploring some on floor 11, which is not a bad option.
Right, most of the monsters here are fire monsters, and so neutral damage is pretty decent. It is very workable to explore and reassess your items and rebuild after the dash through the waterfalls.
Yep, and building up a little bit of XP, and staying at level 8, not a bad place to be, although, yes, using that loop there, definitely a good option. I do tend to like to see if I can get at least a little bit more HP before heading into a room, which I think he did probably have enough to take on a slammer bomb trap, but that would be put him in a pretty perilous position.
Yeah, that would be a pretty tricky thing. At least in this circumstances, he has that monster loop, but right now what it is telling him is that there are fools to the left of him and jokers to the right.
Yes, and he's stuck in the middle with Kuhn.
Yes. Yes, I would probably kept walking, but and Maafterchef getting some copper coins stolen from him by that picket, so he doesn't suffer a loss. That is very nice.
Yep.
And the thing you can do, I couldn't tell if he was just standing on the copper coins or if he deliberately filled up his inventory with them, just, in case he's a little bit of junk would make a difference.
I think based off of the fact that his inventory is otherwise full, he was standing on them, whether deliberate or not. Now, one thing here, because the troll is in a direct line of sight to Ko, it will always prefer to attack Ko. Here, Skate using the fireball, which even though wands have a pretty high accuracy, it's never a bad thing to just be sure that you're going to take it out.
Yep, when you're at that narrow a margin. And, yeah. More bad things.
So it looks like Maafterchef is aware of the mechanic, because we saw him put down a love of fruit and then stand on it. That is a very nice play.
That is a clever use of an obscure game mechanic. Round of applause on that one.
Now, I will give you a perhaps even more obscure mechanic, which is you could use that same love of fruit a little bit of a different way. If you throw it at the picket, it will gladly accept it and run away from you as if it had stolen it.
Huh. That's neat.
That's a little bit unfortunate there. It is very difficult sometimes to read the elevations if you're not looking at the mini-map, and he thought he was in line with the troll. This time, though, definitely in line, taking it out, and picking up CUNY and hightailing it out of there. Definitely a good idea. I don't know how CUNY's doing for HP, but Skate probably
not
wouldn't.
all that great, but it looks like there is still more trouble heading his way. This is quite the pickle.
Yes, and because he did take that extra step, yes, using an Olim here, yes, Sand Knight there, I think, speaking for everyone, asking, what is this 11th floor?
A nightmare is what it is.
Yes.
And one of those things that we're like, Like we were saying earlier, oh yeah, it's reasonably safe. Not same as safe.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
the crossbow ownership that these trolls have does make this predicament especially hairy because there really isn't a whole lot of extra safety here. He's going to run setting Tune down.
I think his instinct, though, to use a Holy Scroll here is a pretty good one, and using it in particular on the volcano to turn it friendly, he could now, if he wanted to, pick up the volcano and step into that tile himself to get the... but it will...
That would be the best. Maybe also... Well, he can hold Kuhn that will also work. Probably bag Kuhn under the circumstances.
Yeah. Bagging Kuhn, definitely a perfectly reasonable option here. You could probably also toss it to the side and it would be alright. But that is not... That crossbow troll is firing away, not able to hit, but the Holy Scroll does not have an infinite duration. So...
he does have to make a decision about this. There we are.
Oh, yes. I neglected to consider the fact that because he threw Kuhn,
the crossbow troll could hit him. That was what I was trying to tell you about. Out that it is still firing away, and he would naturally be lined up with it.
Yeah, you tried to tell me, and I was just yammering away, and you couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Well, more that you did not quite pick up what I was putting down, and so we're putting down with that regard. You noticed what I wanted you to notice, but it did not mean what I was hoping to direct you towards. So he right now is using an exit loop, also going to not pay attention to that blue collar, and I think that's pretty reasonable given that that room is occupied. And oh, that's not fun. And here you can see him clearly going, game, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Meanwhile,
also, I think I saw Maafterchef use a holy bell and then have everyone partying at the other entrance to the room.
Yes, that is a very nice thing when all the monsters exit one way and you're able to skedaddle out the other. So going ahead and using his wind crystal there as picket bait. That is
here now, like in the last 30 minutes of the match. Last 25 minutes of the match or so. So it's not unreasonable for him to decide that this might end up being as good as he's going to get.
Yep.
Well, I'm not sure if it would be, but then again, it's not like Kuhn has had the opportunity to build levels. And oh, hey! An egg on these floors could be really good. This could be an interacting egg, the thing everyone wishes for, or one of the things everyone could wish for from an egg in the tower.
Yeah, it's got a little, about a 9.4% chance of being an arachne egg. Could also be a griffin, a newel, which... A
griffin on the 20th floor? Really? Wow.
Just barely. It's the last floor you can get a griffin egg.
Interesting.
At least if my table is correct.
It's probably correct.
I mean, usually these are only hypothetical values. I check some of them, but I don't check each and every one. So.
Right, so that could have also probably then therefore been, and I'd assume anyway, a Garuda, which is one of the other things you really want to find. One of the things that will make a run much easier.
Oh yes, it's a 15.625% chance of being a Garuda. So
nice.
If I were Maafterchef, I would be searching for the elevator to have a safe place to incubate that egg. So at least he's got an escape plan should a group of, let's say vipers come along, as we are now in Viper Town.
Yep. I've never thought about Viper as a monster that the player could have, but I don't think it has a spell, and so that really does diminish its utility a little bit as a player monster.
It doesn't have a default spell. All the monsters that evolve do start with spells. The ones that don't evolve, well, don't. But the hidden spell here, I'm looking up. We have Demirror.
Hidden spell anyway because he ignored the blue collar, which is
Yeah.
kind of one of the reasons why I generally don't ignore it, even if I don't have a monster now. You never know what you're going to find and what you might have the opportunity to invest in.
That's a good point. Also a good point is the fact that Maafterchef is here on floor 21 at 40 minutes in, which is at least does give him the potential to exceed the highest floor that he's reached so far. Could have potentially gone higher than his previous in this match best of 23 in the previous run. But we're now hopefully going to see climbs further on.
That would be very nice to see. And I think Skateman has a lot of potential to reach some higher floors than he has reached in this match. One would hope, anyway.
Yeah.
It's never a sure thing.
Still does have spell balls available, and critically not getting into melee with that Griffin before using the blinder ball. I've seen some players do that, and because the Griffin is always going to walk straight forward until it hits a wall, and at which point it will turn right, he knows that definitely best to fire that off when there's a space of distance. So not quite sure why Skate was passing turns there before heading up. He was at full health. But
Maybe
the instinct...
Yeah, I think it was probably instinct and a little bit muscle memory, but occasionally you do get that nice opportunity to just go up.
Mm-hmm.
And it is always a blessing. I guess we're going to see what's in that egg.
Yep.
It is a Kraken, which is, meh.
Yeah. At least it was effective against the fire elemental Weedon. That's the best we can say there. So that Neil becoming blind, that's nice. No longer having a horse as the game.
Because in a room, anything can see you.
Mm-hmm.
Visibility range only kicks in when you're outside of a room. And then it only kicks in a little bit away.
Yep. So we see here Maafterchef using the Mahel Seed to get a few extra turns in. Does it tank one hit from the Unicorn, but that's not too bad. Meanwhile...
Right, it definitely could be worse. Unicorns sit somewhere between legitimately threatening enemy and mostly annoying. Because they are and here we are, low blind, which could be very punishing, but in this case, manages to not impact him. But it looks like he is just in a predicament. There is something in every direction.
Yeah, he does have a Holy Scroll. He's kept a familiar bell, which, as loud as he may ring it, CUNY is not going to wake up from that. Fortunately
not.
Those various spell balls could come in handy. Especially, I would think that if he ends up using the Holy Scroll to get the immunity, thereafter casting poison, because it does have a little bit of...
She used the malicious
Ooh.
scroll. That is one of those things, like the predicament we had earlier.
Oh no, and he did not realize that when you are affected by a status ailment, a severe one, you have a 50-50 chance of recovering when you're hit. So he did not need to use the anti-chaos. That was
unfortunate.
Yes.
A very solid run. And I would be kind of surprised if he went for the re-entry at this point.
Yeah. Given that
it's a good 4 point, and there are about 15 minutes left in the match. So he could make some good time with that. I still doubt he will, particularly since his Q died as early as it did. There's really no advantage to it. But we will still have to see what Skateman can do with the time remaining and what he'll be able to pull off.
Right.
And that fireball is one that is out of charge. And that is always the trouble of having multiple fireballs. Is that you never know it's easy to lose track of which one is the 5-use one and which one is question mark, question mark, question mark. If I were him, I would throw out the empty one now that he has the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, or at the very least, make a mental note to do so when he reaches the elevator if he doesn't want to have another turn of monsters potentially spawning or coming closer. We do, as Horza points out in chat, Maafterchef reaching floor 21 at the time that he did, that was definitely perfectly reasonable. And we'll see if Skate is able to reach 22 in 14 minutes. That is a possible feat to go up 6 floors. Though these trolls may have something else to say about that.
Yep, this is a pretty rough situation for him. Oh no, he's thinking that a holy bell is like a holy scroll. But it isn't, it is a use item. So that brings this friendly third most likely to an end. I think they're both going to call it lit at this point. They have been racing for 2 and a vast majority of a third hours. So I think we'll get them in for an interview.
Yep, if they so care to join us, I'm going ahead and getting the link to send them. And my Discord is going a little bit slow, but we fired that off. Maafterchef won't be able to join us, but Skateman will. So we will have him. It looks like he is in setup, so we should have him in voice momentarily. Do we? Looks like Skate is still in setup. Maybe checking his audio for a moment.
Yeah. So what do we make of this set of races as a whole? I think there were certainly a lot of learning opportunities, and you could see the runners growing a bit as they continued, and we got a lot of good, consistent runs out of them, which is the bit that impressed me, honestly.
Yep. So hello, skateman. GG.
Excellent running here tonight.
Hello. Thank you.
So we found a lot of things that impressed us. Reaching as high as you did, as a fairly new runner to the game, and doing so generally on that first entry. That's quite a feat. How did you feel? Were you happy?
Yeah. I mean, with the luck that I got, I'm pretty happy with how I did, considering, like you said, I think I'm one of the. I mean, we're all new here, but I think I'm one of the newer ones. As in, I registered playing the game, so. So this is like only, I don't know, I think I can count on two hands the amount of runs I've done. So, I mean, given my lack of experience, pretty okay.
And we could see you dealing with a lot of situations that you otherwise hadn't dealt with. And I think mostly you handled them pretty all right, given what you understood about the circumstances you were in.
Yeah, there was a lot of situations. Like, I think the funniest one for sure, and I'm sure you guys were laughing, was like when CUNY was out of MP. Like, I've never either I've never seen that before, or I just completely forgot that was a thing. I thought they were sleeping, and I was trying to wake them up. And
right, it is the same animation except for the blue glow.
Yeah, you think I would have known?
Yeah,
like,
and
it's a reasonable thing to read as, "Oh no, on the trap," and etc. And your struggles to keep him alive through that were pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But you kept him alive, you figured it out, you restored his MP, and you moved on with your run. And more than anything else, I was impressed by your resiliency. You didn't let the game get you down. You kept on trucking, and even when you realized, I've gotten in a tough situation, I need to have a flame take me out of here to go pick up CUNY, you did what you need to do in order to get going.
Yeah, that is, I think, the really impressive thing about your runs was the sheer number of opportunities you had to be very tilted, but you kept a very methodical pace the whole time.
Right, yeah. There are a lot of situations like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You gotta play to your outs in this game. You gotta just have to. Sometimes you just need to sit there and just look at everything you have. And you're like, okay, what the heck can I do? What's the best play here? And I feel like I got out of a lot of really, really sticky situations pretty okay. I mean, there was some really, really big mistakes in there, of course, but I mean, for the most part, I think I did all right, considering I got so many warps.
Oh yeah, and in a race situation, it's a whole lot more difficult because you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? You know, am I ahead? Am I behind? And keeping that all under control is great. Another thing that I would like to point out that I thought you did well was those floor one skips. I think you got almost all of them all of the time. So congrats on doing that.
Very good, and it gave everyone watching a chance to get a good look at those, because sometimes it's very easy to miss them or just not think about. I think most people who run the game know the elevator one, but I don't think a lot of people think about the one where you hold the egg and don't put it in your inventory right away.
Yeah, like when it comes to learning like a new game or speedrun, I'm kind of the guy who wants to know like everything. I want to know all the different things you can do to save time or go fast or whatever. And I think that was like the one thing that was not really covered when I was first coached by Sand Knight mostly. But then I think it was Wugga who like posted a video, and then I saw him do it in his like kind of run through, and I was like, oh, that's neat. And then I look into it. I'm like, oh, this is really not that bad at all. All right, might as well skip a tutorial again. It seems good. Apparently there's like another one with like the sword, but that one looked kind of weird to me. I mean, maybe you two can explain it, but it was kind of weird. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, well, at the very least, I'll step in here and say that the text boxes are very weird, and apparently, if you attempt to pick up CUNY too many times, the game can actually soft lock. So there's some mysterious things going on with the text boxes. So I don't blame you for not necessarily trying to get every last skip. Before we go, do you have any closing thoughts about the matches?
I don't know. Actually, I was kind of curious. How did that last match go? Because I think I saw Chef typing first. I don't know if they ripped or anything.
He died before you. Died before you on floor 21. 21? Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, they were really high up. So okay.
Yeah, and that was at I think around the 40-minute mark, maybe a little bit before. Or that point. Not going, but definitely, I think you could have caught up if circumstances had just worked out differently. But isn't that the way of Azure Dreams?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. But overall, if you think about, in that first race, a floor 4 difference isn't that much, nor is, this one ended up working out to be a 6th floor difference, and you were keeping the floor count difference pretty close in the third match there. So, as with any race, I do encourage you to go back, review the footage. Try not to be upset at me for making some puns, and
who really minds puns? People will just appreciate them angrily.
Yeah, no worries. I'll probably review it. I'll take a quick look. I'm definitely curious on some things that you two commented on that I could have done differently or something like that. And I'm definitely happy with the.
We're very glad that you remembered to have and not give that ton of fruit. We were watching that, and for a long time.
Oh yeah.
No. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to future matches. This is just kind of a good warm up for me to, get back into it and, get these races going. And I feel a lot better about how I can do in the rest of it now. So that'll be cool.
You will be excited to see how things develop. In terms of future matches, there will be another match tomorrow, the first match of the second week on one of the SpeedGaming channels. I'm sure someone can provide the links. Actually, come to that. I can probably just hit Azure and it will tell you.
Yes.
Also not listed in the schedule. Palmer and I will be continuing our match from yesterday to finish up our third round, probably on the Azure Dreams SpeedGaming channel tomorrow, and so that will be a fun thing to check out. And then we will probably get the rest of week 2 in order and scheduled, and you will see many more Azure Dreams matches as the weeks continue.
Yep. And so we hope you join us for those. I would like to give a big thanks to SpeedGaming for hosting us and for being just wonderful people helping with setup and everything. Thanks to both of our runners. We hope you go ahead and give them a follow on Twitch. Also, thank you, Deme. It is a pleasure commentating with you as always.
Likewise, thank you very much, and thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a good morning, evening, day, night, whatever it happens to be. Oh, yes. Let's see. How does one link to the runner? What is the command for that? Someone probably knows the shortcut for linking to the runners. Thank you. Thank you, Sad Night.
All right. With that, it is over and out for us. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.